Hello everyone, it's Justin here, and I've jumped on quickly to make a new video just talking a little bit about what I've been up to and some of the progress I've made in my doctoral application, which is something I applied to recently. So stay tuned if you want to hear about that. In my last video, you would have known that I completed my second WGU program, and I did that in a pretty expedited fashion. I can link a video somewhere if you want to learn about how I did that. So that was the Master's of Education in Learning and Technology. I had to remember because I've also done a Master's in Science in Curriculum and Instruction. And that was in 2020 that I did that first program. Now, since then, I've made a video on whether I want to continue to do more schooling. And I had done a whole scavenger hunt around looking for different programs. Initially, I was interested in doing a doctoral program that was competency-based, similar to WGU. And there were different universities that I looked into, and thanks for those who made suggestions. So I looked into those. I found that as a Canadian, that it would still be a little bit expensive for me, even if I tried to accelerate them. And also, I wasn't sure if I wanted to accelerate them, as well as I didn't know if I liked the format of competency-based education for a doctoral program. I think I wanted something that was a little bit more traditional, but also contemporary at the same time, because I really missed some of the more discussional ways of learning. So I wanted seminars as a way of teaching and learning, and I also wanted to just engage with others in the process a bit more deliberately. So I ended up looking at different universities in Canada. I found one, it's a relatively newer university compared to like those long-lasting historical ones that have been around forever. And this university is quite contemporary. They focus on kind of technology and the digital age, as well as they have newer programs, including the Doctor of Education. So I have spent probably the last 4 months really trying to build a well-crafted application for this program that I'm interested in. And the first step for me was getting in touch with different prospective supervisors, because in this application, they needed me to confirm that I had established a working relationship with a supervisor before starting. Now, sometimes programs will pair you up with somebody based on your areas of interest, or you'll kind of do a year of coursework and then learn more about supervision. But in this way, they wanted me to basically be proactive, find somebody, get that guarantee that they wanted to work with me, and then to build that working relationship even before the start of the program so that, I could build a well-crafted statement of intent for that admissions process. So I found one supervisor who I really enjoyed her research interests, but also as we were talking, her and I, because we set up some meetings, I learned about her personal life, and it sounds like her and I are very similar in our personalities and our interests. It just made communicating really enjoyable. So that was easy for me to kind of like establish as the first step to the application, because she was really interested in working with me. Now, just because that's the case doesn't mean there's a guarantee I'll be accepted, but it does create a stronger case that I'm a good candidate. So what we did was I started by writing a statement of intent, which is basically an overview of the research I want to conduct in a doctoral degree, as well as how it relates to me as a professional, as well as my training. Now, as it comes to the research, I had to describe the topic, and I did like a very miniature literature review, and it's almost like more of a description of the topic with some research that supported it and the research problem. And then I talked a little bit about the methods that I was hoping to employ, which included some different qualitative methods. And then I talked a little bit about some research questions that I was interested in exploring, as well as how I might analyze the data. And then at the very end, I just basically wrapped everything up. And it's about 3 pages, this document. Luckily, the prospective supervisor was really interested in reading it because she wasn't part of she isn't part of the admissions review committee. So she read it, and then she gave me feedback, which was awesome. And she really was excited by it. So it kind of helped strengthen this relationship. Now, what was key is that I did this very early on, like a whole year in advance, essentially, before I planned to start, because she has to be careful about not to accept too many students. And so I'm kind of one of these first ones that have approached her, and she's kept her eye on me. So I kind of jumped onto the bandwagon pretty early on of wanting to work together. So other than that, some things that I've had to do is I've had to work on my academic CV, which is different than a very targeted resume. So the academic CV, the whole aim there is that I'm going to include different academic work. So that would include some of my research as well as teaching experience and service to the academic community. And I've done that in many different ways. That might also include different conference presentations I've done, different publications. And then from there, I also had to gather all my different transcripts, and I've been to like 6 different universities, so that took a while. Luckily, I just had to upload some different unofficial transcripts, not the official ones. I also had to upload different parchments, so those are like the different diplomas or documents that you receive when you graduate a program. And so, I have a whole bunch because I have a undergrad, associates, an undergrad, 3 masters, and an university certificate. And so I had to scan all those. And I also had to get 2 references. One was an academic, so a professor I've worked with and who I'm actually quite close with still to this day, as well as a professional one that I had from my last job. And they basically just had to write a little bit about myself in this form and my performance and my attitude, and then they had to fill out kind of like a questionnaire about me. So there were a few other things that I had to do in order to complete this application. Like I had to upload all my work experience to a form, which took quite a while. And then they did want to see in the transcripts, if I go back to that, I did actually scan the last pages of my transcripts because particularly for WGU, which doesn't follow a traditional scaling system. So what's nice about the WGU transcript is that they have an explanation of the competency-based education model. They talk about their accreditation as well as what a pass is equivalent to. So it actually describes pass is equivalent to a B and higher grade. And that is useful because I was a little bit worried that reviewers might look at this transcript that says pass, 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 all these courses, and not really be sure what exactly that is. So I thought that that was good that WGU has that as the last page. I submitted the application and then I contacted some different people in the graduate studies faculty, and they said I wouldn't hear anything back till June, which is a very long time. And in a way, that's kind of a little bit of an issue because if let's say hypothetically I was applying to different programs, it might actually cause an issue for me having to make a decision so late in the game, and therefore they might lose a potential candidate for a doctoral program. I actually did discover through the Faculty of Education that they are accepting or sending offers out in February, which is great. Around that time or shortly after, I'm going to hear back if I get funding as well. And I haven't personally applied to the funding, but the professor I am potentially working with, she applied to 𝘀𝗀𝗃, which is a very well-known grant, federal grant in Canada for the social sciences and humanities. And it would be basically giving me a certain amount of money a year for the next 3 or 4 years. And that would be definitely enough to cover the cost of all the tuition, but as well as much more, I would say. It's quite a substantial amount of money. It's definitely not something you could live off of for the whole year only, but it would definitely help me maybe work less and focus more on the schooling part. So the program is quite unique in that it's just 1 day a week that you have your course, and then you're with other people. So it's kind of like a seminar course, and then you have projects that you're working on throughout the term. And there aren't a ton of electives. So that's one thing that I was really interested in, is a program that just wasn't like 10 different electives plus all these core courses and the research. It really is only, I think, somewhere between 3 to 5 electives that you have to do in your coursework. And then the courses, the core ones, are all dedicated to the research project. And so it's kind of like double duty. The courses, the core ones, you're doing your research. And so it's leading up to the candidacy exam, which is in the middle of your program, basically just defending your proposal or kind of where you're at in your development of your project. And then you just conduct the research, and then at the end, obviously, you have to defend the dissertation. So I think it's a great program for someone like me because it has structure, but it also allows for some freedom. And I feel like it's going to be a bit of a more efficient way of doing a doctoral program, the way it's set up. And it's aimed to be a 3-year program because it's a Doctor of Education, which is a little bit different than a PhD. The Doctor of Education is more aimed towards researcher practitioners rather than just to aspiring or current academics. So if you're interested in learning more about my journey as I'm kind of going towards this doctoral path, feel free to stay tuned. I do really have a strong sense that WGU prepared me really well for this kind of program because I am quite determined to do a little bit of pre-work before I even start the program. I want to start a literature review. I want to start to outline that research project. And I have a lot of dedication and motivation to do this, which I think comes from knowing WGU was something that pushed my potential for being a self-directed learner. And I think WGU really helped me take ownership of my learning, be very responsible about my learning. So stay tuned if you want to learn more. And otherwise, I hope to make a few more videos about WGU in the future. Even though I'm done, I still have some different things that I want to talk about. And you're more than welcome to stay tuned to hear about that.